Good evening, Sindhura. Can you hear me? Good. So we discussed about the basic concepts of security analysis in the last class, and we started with portfolio management. Any questions? Any doubts? Okay. I'll just wait for a minute. A full course exam preparatory for the students who have not enrolled for exam preparatory. For all the students in whichever way they are enrolled with us, whether by way of pen drives or by way of classes or even by way of e-books, for all the students we would be conducting a full course exam preparatory. So that would be in the end of November for FTFM, and in the early December it will be for ATLP. Okay. So can we start the class? One more thing which I was thinking is, Amrita and Sindhura, I think both of you are from Bangalore, if I'm not wrong. So have you ever met each other? And Dipali also, and who else? Supraja also is from Bangalore. So why this just came to my mind is, in the last batch in FTFM classes we had a student. She lived very close by my house. So and she was taking the online classes. So I was expecting that just before the examination she would definitely come and she would ask me some of the queries, because maybe that she's not able to clarify her complete doubts, her complete, she's not getting the complete confidence from getting the online classes. And she never met me throughout the course. She never met me. I had one student from Noida in ATLP and one in FTFM, and both of them, they never bothered to meet me, and both of them cleared the exam in the last examination. So then I got the confidence that we cannot say that these online classes in any way are less than the live classes. Basically, because if somebody is just living in the same sector and for the 6 months period she's not even tried to meet me, because the other one was my ATLP student, was still a pen drive student. So that student, I thought maybe she's too busy that she cannot come. And this girl, after passing out, she has come, she has met me and all that. But that means that there was no restriction to her meeting me, but she did not feel the need for it. So this is something which gave me a lot of confidence that there is these classes which we are conducting online, they are equally good as any other live class would be. And the beauty of this is that you can attend the classes at your convenience as many number of times, and you can so I think it is better than, rather than saying that it is equal to a live class. At times I feel it is better than a live class, because many a times in the live classes there are some people who are not interested, and some maybe getting distracted because of them. So all those problems are also sorted out. So at times I feel that this is a beautiful concept which has been, I don't know who has invented it, but these classes are sometimes I feel that they are much better than any of the live classes. Chaliye. So it's just something that came to my mind. I think Abhishek is also from Bangalore. Abhishek, where are you from? Sorry, he's from Mumbai. Just one second. Hello. You on hold. So coming back to the topic, just I became a little emotional about the entire concept, and I was discussing a few things. Now we in the last class were discussing about security analysis, and I gave you some insights about the fundamental analysis, the technical analysis, and we also spoke about the various kinds of efficiencies in the market, right? Now from here we take it forward, and we rather took it forward, and we discussed about the portfolio management also, where we just tried to find out the expected returns from a portfolio by assigning the weights to the portfolio, right? So now we have to take it forward from there. See, we have looked at the return from the portfolio. We have to now look at the risk of the portfolio. Just a second. Yeah. Ganesh is writing, ma'am, even clear my tip only through your classes. I did not even study full study material. Please don't do this. Please read the study material as well. It is very important. Hanji. No, please study the study material also. It's important. So now we go back to the topic, and okay. Yeah, Ganesh has been my student at the executive level as well. So there he did not even study the study material. This is a surprise to me, but please don't do this time. Okay. So now I'm coming back to the topic. See, we discussed about how to measure expected return in case of a portfolio. We assigned the weights and we tried to calculate what is going to be the expected return. Now, in every situation, in case of security analysis or in case of investments, we have to look at the risk as well as return. So how do we analyze the risk? We have already discussed it many times that we look at the standard deviation to evaluate the risk. Now, supposing we are evaluating two investments, share M and share N for investment, and the data of returns is as under. So we are looking at the last 5 years information. We're looking at the last 5 years data, and yearly data has been for share M 30%, 28%, 34%, 32%, and 31%. And for share N, it has been 26%, 13%, 48%, 11%, and 57%. My question is that which one would you like to invest in? Would you like to invest in share M or would you like to invest in share N? Which one would you like to invest in? and just tell me a random answer, even if you're not looking at any kind of an analysis here. Just look at randomly, where would you like to invest? Abhishek is saying that he would like to invest in share M. Yes, of course, because there is a lower variance here. You can see that the level of variance is, all of them are very close to 30%, right? Whereas in case of share N, though the returns may go even to the extent of 57%, but there are chances that the return can even go down to 13% as well. So the risk is more. So how do we measure the risk? We measure the risk with the variance, because variance is more, because the standard deviation is more in case of share N. So we would like to invest in share M, right? So the risk measure is standard deviation and variance, right? Now the question is, how do we calculate variance? We've already done that in the earlier cases, but just for the sake of repetition, or just for the sake of revision, I would say, how do we find out variance? We said x minus x bar multiplied by probability. I did it with you when we were discussing, I think, the capital budgeting chapter, where x is the possible return and x bar is the expected return. Where x is the possible return and x bar is the expected return. So how do we find out expected return? You know. You've done it in the previous case. In this case, in the last class, you calculated the expected return 10.5%. Right? Now this is my expected return. So this I can calculate for all the securities. And then here, because we had 3 different securities, if we take it in case of probabilities. Okay, now let me change the data a little. Supposing I have been given that in case of weak economy, which is where there are 20% chances, I would be getting a return of 10%. In case of a strong economy, where there are again 20% chances, I would be getting a return of say 30%. And in case of a normal condition, normal economic conditions, where the probability is 60%, I would be getting a return of say 20%. And if I have to find out the expected return, I'm sure you would be able to do it. What we have to do is, we have to simply multiply the probability with the probable return, and we would be getting 2% here, we would be getting 6% here, and we would be getting 12% here. So by adding all of them, we can say that the expected return for this particular security is 20%. Right? It's very, very simple. Now if I have to find out the standard deviation or the variance, what will I do? I will find out the difference between possible return and expected return. Now expected return is 20% and possible return is 10%. So 10 minus 20 is minus 10. Then I'll have to make a square of it. So minus 10 multiplied by minus 10 is equals to 100. And 100 has to be multiplied with 20%. So it becomes 20. You're understanding what I'm doing? I'm doing 10 minus 20% multiplied by the probability. 10 minus 20% का square multiplied by the probability. Are you able to follow the formula? I said 0.2 multiplied by 10 minus 20. Where am I writing? Okay, sorry. 10 minus 20 square. Right? This is equals to 20. Similarly, I can find it out for the second situation. Okay, you can tell me what will be the number in the second situation. What will be the number in the second situation? No, not 60. It would be 20 again. Now how did I calculate it? It is 0.2, which is the probability, multiplied by 30 minus 20 ka square. Because the probable return in the second situation is 30% and the expected return is 20%. You're able to follow? Right? Can you calculate for the third situation? It should be instant. Are you trying? Okay. No, it will be 0. Why it will be 0? Because 20 minus 20 is 0. Yeah, I'll explain it again. What I'm doing is, I have first, I'll do it. Just understand. I have first calculated the probability of getting, I have first calculated, you can say, the weighted average of the probability and because in general situations we have to take the average. But when the probability is given, so we give the weight to the probability and find out the average. So I calculated the average as 20%. That you can understand. How did I get this 20%? That you've been able to understand, yes or no? No. Okay, I'll tell you again. See, how do you find out mean? Supposing you have been given that there are 3 returns which are possible, 10%, 20% and 30%. And what will be the expected return? What you will do? You will take the mean of them. So you will add the 3 together and calculate the average. Right? Yes or no? But here, the chance of getting 10% is just 20%. And the chance of getting 20% is just, 30% is just 20%. Okay, यहाँ पे 30 आएगा. Sorry. 10, 30, 20 है ना? हाँ, सही है. So the chance of getting this 30% is again 20%. And the chance of getting this 20% is 60%. Right? So when we divide it by 3, we assume that there is a possibility, there is 1/3 chance for 10%, there is 1/3 chance for 20%, and there is 1/3 chance for 30%. Mathematically, that is what we assume. Right? But here we have been very clearly told that it is not 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. There is a 20% chance that there will be a 10% return. So you will have to multiply this 10% with 20%. Right? Then you will have to multiply this 20% with 60%. Right? So 0.6 multiplied by 20%. And then you will have to multiply this 30% with this 20%. So it is equals to 0.2 multiplied by 30%. Right? Now I need not divide because I have already taken the percentages. Right? Is it getting clear now? Right? So therefore, if I take this total, it would be, just 1 second. Hello? Yes, Neha, I am just sending you. Yeah, so sorry. So here you have, so you can find out the total now. So I said 20% of 10% is equals to 2, plus 12 plus 6 is equals to 20. Is it clear now? How did I get this 20? The initial 20? Clear to everybody? Okay. So now so my average expected return is 20%. Right? Now I want to understand that how much can be the deviation from this average expected return. How much can be the deviation from this average expected return, because that is my concern. When you talked about security M and when you talked about security N, at that point of time also you were looking at the deviation, right? So in order to find out deviation, what you will say, that my expectation is 20%, but there are 20% chances that it can be 10%, right? But there are 20% chances that it can be 10%. So in that situation, 0.2 multiplied by x minus x bar. So 10% minus 20%. Now, because we first find out the variance and then the standard deviation, so we'll first square it and then we'll take a standard deviation, then we'll take a square root of it, right? So 20% multiplied by 10%, there's a 20% chance that the return can be 10%. And how much different it is from average? It is 10 minus 20. So that is the variance. That is how it can vary. Plus, again there are 20% chances that the return can be 30%. But my expectation is 20%. Again I square it. Plus there are 60% chances that the return can be 20%. And my expectation is also 20%. So there is no deviation here. You're getting my point? So by adding them together, I can find out the standard, the variance here is 40. This is my variance, and the standard deviation would be square root of variance. That is equals to square root of 40. That will be the standard deviation in this case. Are you able to follow now? It's clear, because this is one of the most important concepts. From here we will develop everything. So this one should be absolutely clear to you. Any doubts you can still ask me. So I move back to the PPT if there are no doubts. So how do we calculate variance? The formula is variance is standard deviation square is equals to probability multiplied by possible return minus expected return ka square. Okay. So that, and what is standard deviation? This is denoted by this symbol. The symbol for standard deviation is this sigma kind of a symbol, is equals to square root of variance, and that is why I had taken the square root of 40. Right? Is it clear up to this point? Now, if I have to find out the standard deviation of a portfolio, if I have to find out, this is the standard deviation of a security, right? Now, if I have to find out the standard deviation of a portfolio, in that situation, why do we create a portfolio? Why do we create a portfolio? Anybody? Why do we create a portfolio? For maintaining risk, no. But how will we maintain risk? How would we maintain risk? Now, maintaining is, yeah, to diversify the risk. That is the right word which I was looking for. So we create a portfolio. Because we want to diversify. Now, when we want to diversify, as I discussed with you in the earlier classes as well, we are going to invest in certain securities which will be positively or negatively correlated with each other. So in that situation, if one will gain, the other will lose or will not gain to that a particular extent. So that means that in this situation, if I have got two securities here and it is a situation of a weak economy, there can be another security which can have a different, different situation than this particular situation which I have presented to you. That particular security may work differently. In a weak economy, it may give you 30%. In a strong economy, it can give you 10%. In normal economic conditions, it may give you, 15% or whatever. So in that situation, we will have to use the concept of correlation between the two securities. Right? So for that, what you will do, you will find out the standard deviation for one security. You will find out the standard deviation for the other security. And then you will find out the correlation between these two securities. You're getting my point? Now, the question is, how will I find out the correlation? How will I find out the correlation between the two securities? यहाँ तक बात समझ में आ रही है? अब correlation I'll explain. Okay? So, what we'll do, I'll just open up an Excel file because इसके ऊपर समझ में नहीं आएगा ठीक से. Just give me a minute. Yeah. So I have to find out correlation between the two securities, and in order to find out correlation, I have to find out that are these two securities co-varying with each other. Yeah, that means that I have calculated the variance of security 1. I have calculated variance of security 2. I want to understand that do they co-vary with each other? So that means, you're getting my point. Co-vary means that when one is increasing, is the other increasing. When the one is decreasing, is the other also decreasing. So we will have to find out what? We will have to find out covariance. And how do we find out covariance? How do we find out covariance? I'll just share the formula with you and then I'll show you the calculation on the Excel file. In order to find out covariance, what I should do is, I have taken 20% multiplied by 10 minus 20 raised to power 2 here. Right? Should I take the same for security Y also here? That means Y minus Y1 raised to power 2 here. So that means I say that there are 20% chances that X will vary in this manner. Yeah, here we are. So what I've taken in this particular situation, I have taken the state of economies into 6 situations. There can be, we are expecting that there can be 10% chances for a particular state of economy, 20% chances for another state of economy. So I have divided the future state of economies into 6 possible situations and I've given probability to each of them. Can we do that? Now, having done that, I have written that there are 10% chances that there will be 12% return, there are 20% chances that there will be 14% return, and so on and so forth. This we have already done, right? Now, what we did, we multiply the probability with the return to find out the expected return, right? So here also we multiplied the probability with the return and calculated, and then we added them all together. So we calculated that the expected return for this particular investment would be 15.6%. Can we do this? Can we do this? I'll have to stop the screen to get your response. The same calculation which we have done here is I'm showing you on Excel. Okay. So now I'm taking it further. This I can do it for another security as well. Here I'm showing you a proposed investment, but so I am taking a second situation. In the second situation, these are my expected returns. Here I've written it as proposed investment. You can even write it as investment 2. Yeah, not a big issue. So in the second situation, there are 10% chances that there will be 8% return. There are 20% chances that there will be 10% return. There are 20% chances in the third state of economy that there will be a 12% return. So again, I have multiplied these probable returns with their probabilities and calculated that the expected return on the second investment would be 10.20%. Can we do this? For one security I have done, and second security also. Were you able to see the Excel file? Right? So we can calculate for one security and we can calculate it for another security. That was fine. Now what I'm going to do is find out the variance and standard deviation for the first security first. So in order to find out the variance and the standard deviation, what I have to do, I have to multiply the possible return, the difference between the possible return and the expected return, and multiply it with their probability. The square of that has to be multiplied. So what I did, this 2 is my return and my expected return is 15.6 here. So this row number, this column number 2 I am talking about. So what I have done is, I have taken the difference between the possible return and the expected return and taken a, right? So this is the difference between the 12 minus 15.6, 14 minus 15.6, 15 minus 15.6, 16 minus 15.6. I have taken the difference between them. Then I have multiplied it with the probability, and because I had to take a square, so I have multiplied 3.6 with 3.6, right? So I got the I got probability multiplied by x minus x bar square, and then when I added them together, I got the variance of 4.44. Similarly, I can do this for the second investment as well. Similarly, I can do it for second investment. In this particular case, I was not required to calculate for second investment. That is why I have not done, because it is not required to calculate the standard deviation or the variance for both the investments to calculate covariance. That is why I haven't done. I was about to calculate only covariance. So in order to find out covariance, what I have done is, I have multiplied the probability. I have multiplied the probability with x minus x bar and y minus y bar. I have multiplied the probability with x minus x bar and y minus y bar, and then I've added them all together. So covariance between these two securities is minus 0.32. Covariance between these two securities is minus 0.32. You're getting my point? So when you can just, if you just see the numbers, you can see that when one is going up, the other might not be going up. Other might be coming down. You can see that in the sixth situation, there are 10% chances that this security, the first security, the existing investment will be 20%, but there are only, and in this situation, the new security is just, giving you a return of 6%. So they are not very we calculated it by multiplying probability with x minus x bar and y minus y bar. Is it getting clear? And then add them all together, so I get the covariance. I hope I'm able to put across the point well. समझ में आ रहा है? Now once I've got the covariance, covariance gives me a very subjective figure. Now what do I mean to say by subjective? Supposing if I tell you that I have scored 25 marks out of 50 and you have scored 70 marks out of 80. Can we compare the two? I have got 25 out of 50 and you have got 70 out of 80. Can we compare the two? We can compare only by taking the percentages. Right? As of now it is difficult to compare, but if we take the percentages we would be able to compare. Right? So covariance is an absolute figure. In order to rank it within different investments, we need to find out what? We need to find out the coefficient of correlation. That what is the coefficient of this correlation, so that we can express it in terms of minus 1 to 1. See, in percentages also the percentages vary between minus 100 to 100. Right? So coefficient of correlation can be measured between minus 1 to 1. Now how do I find out coefficient of correlation? In order to find out coefficient of correlation, you already have got the covariance. Divide this covariance with the standard deviation of first security and also the standard deviation of second security. You will get the coefficient of correlation. Are you able to understand the relationships between these numbers? I'm sure you must have studied them in class 11 or something, but you are not able to recall it well. Yeah, quantitative techniques, very true. So is it fine now? Now can we utilize these concepts? Okay. So in order to find out the variance of a portfolio, what we have to do is, because in a portfolio the different investments will have different weights. If I've got 10 lakh rupees to invest, I may invest 2 lakhs in one security and 8 lakhs in the other security. So the weight of these two securities in my portfolio may differ. So in order to find out the portfolio's standard deviation or the portfolio's variance, I have to multiply their individual standard deviations with their weights. That I will do. This is what I have done in case of expected return as well. So weight of the first security ka square multiplied by the standard deviation of the first security square, plus weight of the second security square multiplied by the standard deviation of the second security square, plus 2 multiplied by weight of the first security and weight of the second security, multiplied by the coefficient of correlation between the two securities, multiplied by the standard deviation of one and the standard deviation of another. Doesn't it look much like a formula that you used to do in your childhood, A plus B square? We have got two securities here. We want to find out what is the A plus B square. So we say it is A square plus B square plus 2AB. Right? Similarly, it is weight of first security ka square multiplied by the standard deviations of the first security square, plus weight of the second security square multiplied by the standard deviation of the second security square, plus 2 multiplied by their weights by the standard deviation and also with the coefficient of correlation between the two. Now why this? Because the weighted average of the standard deviations would be less than the sum of the individual standard deviations, because they may be less correlated with each other, or they may be more correlated with each other, whatever be the situation. So because of this correlation between them, there is a reduction of risk through diversification, and this reduction of risk through diversification can be measured by the coefficient of correlation between the securities. Right? Because if they are negatively correlated with each other, that means that the collective risk of these two securities would be less than the simple addition of the two risks. Right? So where coefficient of correlation is denoted by small p between 1 and 2 is equals to covariance divided by standard deviation of first security multiplied by standard deviation of the second security. right? This is the formula I just told you a few minutes ago. Covariance is an absolute measure of the extent to which two sets of numbers move together over time. That is, how often they move up or move down. In this regard, move together means that do they generally move above their means in a given situation, or do they generally move below their means at the same time? So in order to find out covariance, what we did, we took the x minus x bar multiplied by y minus y bar and we multiplied it with their probability, right? This formula is not applicable wherever the probabilities are there. So when the probability is there, we simply multiply it with the probability and we do not divide it by 1 divided by n. Okay? So if this is clear, I would be using these concepts a little later after discussing with you the capital asset pricing model, because all these concepts have to be used together. I hope the basics of statistics which I was discussing with you are clear now. You can remember the formula later on, but the basic conceptual clarity has to be there. Okay? Now I am moving to a very good concept which is called capital asset pricing model. This is a very beautiful concept. It rather includes everything that we can think about this particular subject. Of course, securities, the return on securities can move in opposite directions. Of course, yes. See, many a times when Reliance goes up, ITC goes down. When technology shares are up, the pharmaceutical shares are down. And people have established, this kind of relationships through the research as well. There are people who say that when sugar industry goes up, the cement industry goes down. There is no relationship as such between them. But because, just try and understand, you must have studied this in economics as well. Sugar is the basic thing, basic requirement of this. So even in the bad economic conditions, sugar would be always demanded. But cement is a product which will be used only when we are expecting a good economy. So when there is a bad economy, the requirement of sugar is always there, so sugar is up. And when there is a good economy, at that point of time, the sugar is not that very important, cement is very important. So there is a negative correlation between them. This is something which I am telling you by my understanding, but people have proven it by way of statistical research, right? So there are so many industries which move opposite to each other, because when the market is booming, at that point of time, technology, pharmaceuticals, and infrastructure sectors, they go up. But even when the economy is in a lull phase, at that point also the basic requirements, which you must have studied as a concept in economics as elasticity of demand. There are certain products which have got a low elasticity, and there are certain products which have got a very high elasticity depending upon the situations. So according to the product, the demand of that particular product will decide the market price of the shares of that particular company, isn't it? That is what Modigliani Miller also says. Right? So therefore, there are securities which move in opposite directions, and we need to find out those securities only, and then we need to create a portfolio. Is it clear? Now we go to the capital, how to establish this correlation. Very simple. You just have to do a data analysis. You have to pick up the data of X security and you have to pick up the data of Y security. Even if you do not have the probabilities, you've got the historical data, right? So pick up the historical data and calculate an average. Once you've got the average, you can find out X minus X bar, in year 1, how is year 1 different from the average, how is year 2 different from the average, how is year 3 different from the average, right? So you can find out the standard deviation of the first security, you can find out the standard deviation of the second security. Once you've got X minus X bar and you've got Y minus Y bar, multiply the two together and divide it by N, because you've got number of years of data, right? And then you've got the covariance. Once you've got the covariance, divide it with the standard deviations. and you will be able to find out the correlation. It's very, very simple, very easy, and there are a lot of softwares nowadays which are available which are doing this. You don't even have to put in so much of formula and all this. Simply put in the data in Excel also. Put in the data of first security, put in the data of second security, and ask the Excel to find out correlation. It will do it in a minute. Okay. So now let me just go to the capital asset pricing model. As I said, it's a very beautiful concept. It is based upon certain assumptions, and they are very practical assumptions which have been taken for this particular model because we wanted to make the model simple. That's the only idea. First, the model assumes that the market is in the state of strong form of efficiency. Market is in the form of a strong form of efficiency. I discussed with you the 3 forms of efficiency: strong, semi-strong, and weak form of efficiency. While we are doing the CAPM analysis, we are assuming that the market is in a strong form of efficiency because we do not want to unnecessarily complicate the situation because of taking a weak form of efficiency. We are assuming that all the investors are risk averse. Nobody wants to take the risk unless it is getting the return. If I'm getting compensated, if I'm getting good return for taking the risk, I'm ready to take it. But if I'm not getting a good return, I'm not ready to take the risk. So the investors are mean variance optimizers. What does this mean? That they want to get the maximum benefit out of the risk that they are taking. All the investors have got the homogeneous expectations about the risk and return. All the investors, if whatever probabilities they're giving to the future market conditions, they're giving it as the same. People do not have different views about the different probabilities. At present, because we want the model to be simpler, we are assuming that all investors have got the same expectations about the expected returns and the expected risks. We are talking about a single time period here. That means that if one is investing for 1 year, the other is also investing for 1 year only. We're not taking the time duration, the holding period differences here. Just trying to, put them all together. And we also assume that all the investors are able to borrow and lend at this risk-free rate of return. So risk-free rate of interest is available for everybody and it is same for everybody. Right? Some of the things which we are expecting them to remain constant because we want to get the desirable results from the model. So what does this model say? This model says that the total risk, because we've just measured the risk, we measured the standard deviation, right? What is standard deviation showing us? It is showing us the risk, the deviation from the mean, right? So this standard deviation that we have calculated is made up of 2 kinds of risks: the systematic risk and the unsystematic risk. What is the systematic risk? Systematic risk is the risk because I'm in a particular system. So I'm facing that risk. Now, yesterday there was a surgical attack that Indian Army did on some areas of Pakistan. Now, this is something where people are having their own understanding about the situation. I particularly am saluting, the Indian Army for such a successful operation, and I'm sure you must also be doing it. But there were people with whom I was talking in the morning. They were saying that this has increased the risk of war in the country. Now, if it has increased the risk, then it is a systematic risk. All the companies in the country, they will face this risk. Yes or no? All the companies which are working in this country, they are influenced by this risk together. So systematic risk is the risk which everybody faces together. But unsystematic risk is the risk which is individual companies' risk, which can be a risk because of any problem in its own system, because of its labor problems, its technology problem, its material problems. It can be any problem which is particular to that particular company. So unsystematic risk is the risk which every particular company is facing, and systematic risk is the risk which everybody in the system is facing. You got the difference between the two? You got the difference between the two? Right? Now, if I invest in, if I diversify my portfolio, then I can completely avoid this unsystematic risk. Because even if one company will have labor problems, the other might be doing very good in the business, other might get a new contract. So the loss in one will be compensated by the profit in another. If one is having, technology issues, another might be inventing a new technology, and the loss in one may be compensated by the another. So if I completely diversify my portfolio, if I have large investments in various sectors, like when we talk about Warren Buffett, or when we talk about the investors, they invest in so many companies that this unsystematic risk is completely set off. When one is not doing good, the other is doing good. So this risk can be completely diversified. Okay. So the second risk, which is the systematic risk, this has to be measured now. I hope you are able to follow what I am trying to say. It is the systematic risk which cannot be diversified. So if the systematic risk cannot be diversified, can we measure it? The answer is yes. How can we measure it? See, every industry, every company has got a different level of sensitivity to the systematic situations. Now, for example, the risk that I am talking to you today, I am saying that after this surgical operation, there are thousands of companies which are working in India. They've got different sectors in India. So there would be some sectors which would be very, very sensitive to a particular change, or to any change in the industry. But there are some sectors who are not very not very sensitive. You can take some examples here. See, if we talk about infrastructure sector. Now, infrastructure sector will be very sensitive with this particular change. Why? Because if there's going to be any kind of a situation, then the existing infrastructure will also be destroyed, and export to that particular country will be very, very sensitive, very rightly said, right? Then infrastructure sector will be very, very sensitive. Similarly, but there can be some of the sectors like pharmaceutical will benefit with this. If there's going to be any attack on our country, pharmaceutical sector would be all the more getting benefited out of it, right? So in this situation, pharmaceutical sector will have also but it will be sensitive. There will be impact, but it can be a positive or a negative impact. You're getting my point? So what we need to do, we need to measure this sensitivity. Are all the sectors prone to a particular news in the same manner? The answer is no. Every sector, every industry, every company will have its own sensitivity, and this you can measure with the help of past data. Okay? So what is the measure of this sensitivity? The measure of this sensitivity is beta. Okay? So now I'll be talking about beta. Just give me 2 minutes. Before I do that, let me just give you the CAPM formula. What are we trying to achieve by using the CAPM? CAPM says, okay, let me go back to this. CAPM says that unsystematic risk can be completely diversified. I am not concerned with this. I am concerned with this systematic risk. Okay? And higher my sensitivity to this systematic risk, higher would be my expected return. If I'm more sensitive, like the infrastructure sector is very, very sensitive to any changes which happen in the macroeconomic variables. So when we invest in the infrastructure sector, we expect a higher return. More the sensitivity, more the risk, more the return. Is it clear? Is it clear? To this point, is it getting clear? And this sensitivity has to be measured with the help of beta. Okay? So I'll be calculating beta later. CAPM formula says that my expected return will depend upon my sensitivity. Okay? But first of all, let me make it very, very clear. Whenever I invest in any security, the minimum return is the risk-free return. That though I must get. That everybody would be getting. It is a risk-free return even when you're not taking any risk. By investment, you're getting this return. So I would be getting it. This is the risk-free return. Then, because I've invested in the capital market and I have taken a risk, so I should get the premium over the risk-free rate. Right? I should be getting a premium because I am investing in the capital market. So this premium is measured by the difference between the return on market and the risk-free return. Okay? So if the risk-free rate of return is say 10%, is say 8%, and the capital market is giving a return of say 15%, so the premium that you're getting in this by investing in the capital market is 7%. Am I clear? I'm saying that if the risk-free rate of return is 8% and the capital market is giving you a return of 15%, so I can say that 15 minus 8 is my risk premium, right? So again I'm going to get 15 only here. So the return that I would be getting from the market is 15%. Out of this, 8% is the risk-free return and 7% is the risk premium. यहाँ तक बात समझ में आ गई? But an investor will say that there are certain securities in the market which are more sensitive and there are certain securities in the market which are less sensitive. So if I'm investing in a more sensitive security, my return should be more. And if I'm investing in a less sensitive security, my return should be less. Fine? So if I'm investing in a security whose beta is say 1.2, sorry. So then I should get a return of, I will be getting the risk-free return, but my risk premium should be multiplied with beta. So 7 multiplied by 1.2 would be 8.4. So in that situation, that security's expected return would be 16.4 because its beta is 1.2. You're getting my point? So because my sensitivity is more, my risk is more, so I want a better return. This is what is happening. Because I'm taking more risk, I expect a higher return. बात समझ में आ रही है? Now the question that comes is, how do I calculate beta? How do I calculate beta? In order to calculate beta, we've got two formulae, but most of the times in examination, the second formula is applicable. Here there's a mistake. It should be standard deviation of market here, not 1. Okay? So the formula which is most commonly used is correlation between the security and the market multiplied by the standard deviation of the market divided by standard deviation of the security. R is the symbol, इसको आप P भी कह सकते हो. The correlation between the security and the market multiplied by standard deviation of the market divided by standard deviation of the security. और इसी फॉर्मूले का एक और वर्जन है, covariance between the security and the market divided by the standard deviation square of the market. इस फॉर्मूले को अगर आप खोलेंगे तो वापस यही फॉर्मूला बन जाएगा. Because covariance का क्या फॉर्मूला है? Sorry, coefficient of correlation का क्या फॉर्मूला है? It is covariance divided by standard deviation of first security and standard deviation of second security. यहाँ पर हमने क्या करना है? Correlation multiplied by standard deviation of the market. Sorry, it should be standard deviation of the security divided by standard deviation of the market. अब क्या हुआ? यहाँ का एक standard deviation इसके साथ cut out हो गया. So here we have covariance divided by standard deviation square of the market. You are able to understand the mathematical relationship between the two formula. या जरूरत से ज़्यादा I am going too much into mathematics. Is it getting too much of mathematics? You'll understand. Abhishek is finding a difficulty. Okay. Ma'am, can we continue the practical in the next class? I'll be doing that. What I suggest is that we should do one small question today. Why I'm saying this? Because otherwise the entire exercise would be lost. Okay? Abhi kya, I'm going too much into mathematics, so you might be feeling, oh my god, what is this happening? But once we start working out the concepts, then it will be simpler. Okay? I am just trying to give you everything right now over here, because even if the question does not have any particular detail, you're still able to work out. Okay? Abhishek is not clear. Let me repeat it. Abhishek, what I'm saying is, in order to find out beta, what is beta? Okay, let me explain this. What is beta? पहले ये बताते हैं. Supposing we have got the change in you have got every day's data of security on x-axis and market on y-axis. That there are hundreds of securities in the market. So this is the movement of index. And this is the movement of the price of security. Now, can we find a relationship between the two? When the index is increasing, when the index is here, where is the security price? It can be here, it can be here, it can be here, it can be anywhere. Right? But by plotting the various movements of the security and the various movement of index, can we make a graph of the two? Are both of them increasing at the same pace? Or if one is increasing, the other one is increasing, but not at the same pace? Or if one is increasing, the other one is decreasing? Or if one is increasing, the other one is, when one is increasing, when the price of the security is increasing, the market is not that increasing. We can make a shape of a graph in any way. Right? Or no? Can we plot this relationship on a curve? Right? Now, having plotted this relationship in the curve, can we calculate the slope of this curve? Can we calculate the slope of this curve? Percentage change in x divided by percentage change in y. That is what we basically do. Right? But here, because we have got the relationships. So what we are trying to do is, we are trying to find out the relationship by way of a slope, and this is called beta. This is called beta. You're getting my point? Abhishek, now in order to find out beta, just remember a small formula, which is correlation between the security and the market. I is for the investment and M is for the market. Coefficient of correlation between the two multiplied by standard deviation of the security divided by standard deviation of the market. आप एक ही फॉर्मूला याद कर लीजिए. Coefficient of correlation multiplied by the standard deviation of the security divided by the standard deviation of the market. Can we do this? Okay. Because this is one of the most important formula from this particular chapter. How do we calculate beta? Now, this one question I will do. It says return on Lucky Limited's share has a standard deviation of 22%. Standard deviation is a measure of total risk. Right? Right? It includes both systematic as well as unsystematic risk. Because we are talking about standard deviation. How much is the price deviating from the average? So this price may be deviating because of systematic risk, or it can be deviating because of unsystematic risk. So the return on Lucky Limited share has a standard deviation of 22% as against the standard deviation of the market of 12%. Market ki standard deviation is 12% and the shares of Lucky Limited has got a standard deviation of 22%. So this is the standard deviation of the security and this is the standard deviation of the market. ठीक है जी? The correlation coefficient between the market and the stock of Lucky Limited is 0.7. Can you calculate beta? Simple है, यही इसी का फॉर्मूला मैंने अभी आपको बताया. Can we calculate beta here? Oh, good. 1.28. Let me check. Is 1.283 perfect? Right? Standard deviation of the security divided by standard deviation of the market multiplied by the correlation between the two. So everybody can calculate? Right? Now it goes further. It says you have to now divide the standard deviation into systematic risk and unsystematic risk. इसमें से कितना systematic है और कितना unsystematic है. Okay? Once we've got beta, we can calculate the systematic risk. Isn't it? What do you say? क्योंकि beta is a measure of systematic risk. So once we've got beta, we can calculate systematic risk. Yes or no? बोलो जी. Right? So systematic risk is beta multiplied by standard deviation of the market. Because market does not have any unsystematic risk. Right? Market तो market है, पूरा का पूरा एक साथ है. So if I multiply the beta with the standard deviation of the market, because that shows that when the market changes, standard deviation shows that the change in the market conditions. By what multiple is my particular security changing is the systematic risk. Right? Are you able to follow what I'm trying to say? बात समझ में आ रही है? So my security has got a multiple of 1.283 against the market. My security is 1.283 times more sensitive than the changes in the market. So that means I have in this security, my systematic risk is 15.4%. And what is unsystematic risk? It is total risk minus systematic risk is equals to unsystematic risk. No, this is the total risk of the individual security. Standard deviation of the market is the total risk of the market. And standard deviation of the security is the total risk of the security. I am interested in knowing the systematic risk of the security and the unsystematic risk of the security. So systematic risk of the security, out of 22% of standard deviation, how much is systematic and how much is unsystematic? So you understood what is the significance of beta here. When market is changing at the rate of 12%, when the market has got a standard deviation of 12%, my security has got a standard deviation of 15.4%. Beta helps me in knowing this. The sensitivity vis-a-vis the changes in the market conditions. बात समझ में आ गई सबके? Standard deviation is equal to total risk. Now here I can stop if you want me. Because I wanted to do at least this practical question so that the concept builds up. I think we should stop here rather than going too much into practical questions now. But my concern is that I am scheduling tomorrow a test on the full security analysis and portfolio management. With the kind of information that I have shared with you, I have given you the complete concept, but I haven't given you any practice. Will you be able to practice on your own and appear for the test, or should I include just the theory in it? Or can I ask simple practical questions on calculation of beta, on calculation of small calculations? calculation of standard deviation, calculation of correlation. Can we do that? That should be fine. Simple, practical and theory. Okay. So tomorrow we would be including only simple practicals and theory. Next week we would be including all practical in security analysis. ठीक है जी? So tomorrow you have got an exam preparatory at 8:15 p.m. Okay, for FTFM, and day after tomorrow on Sunday you've got an exam preparatory on ATLP. Yeah, it is one hour will be a little too much. Let me see. I can make it for around 45 minutes or something. 1 hour में इतना काम ही नहीं हमने आपको करा, because practical questions तो भी आप नहीं कर पाएंगे. Theory कितना लिखेंगे? Sneha, you have got the same login ID and password. All the PPTs are there in your account. Is it not working? Give me a minute, let me just check it. Let me just check. Let me just check. Wait a second. It is saying invalid user or password. No. She's asking about the notes. Sindhura, you are talking about the Visa IQ. She's writing to me about notes. Okay. So Sneha, I have checked. It shows an invalid login ID and password. I'll be generating a new password for you and will be sending it to you. And another thing you have to, because I've been getting mails from Visa IQ where a copy has been marked to you. They are trying to resolve the issue of this link and all. But I haven't got any mail from your side responding to them or any copy from your side, Sneha. We will have to take it up with them very, very seriously. So please, can we do it tomorrow morning? Let us fix up a time when we have to resolve this issue. I'll do that. So will it be fine if I fix up the time of, say, Ganesh, just a second. Sneha, can we fix up a time tomorrow morning 11 a.m. for resolving? Will it be fine? You're having office. What time is suitable? Sunday, I don't know whether support will be available or not. Okay, just write a mail to me, whatever is your suitable time, so that the support can get in touch with you at that time. Okay, or you can write a WhatsApp also. That should also be fine. Okay. Now, Ganesh was asking how much of syllabus is over. Around 70-75% of the syllabus is over. Okay. Around 70 to 75% it is over. I hope you have studied those. अच्छा, एक चीज कर सकते हैं. Have you studied any of the chapters I told you to study? The financial markets, the financial services chapter. Have you covered that? Because that is for your self study. Okay, I told you to cover that. Very good. There are 3 chapters that you have to cover on your own. Although I would be providing you notes, and I would be providing you with the with the base, a doubt clearing session or the basic insight I will be giving you. But you have to go through it because they are completely theoretical in nature and not very important for examination. From these 3 chapters, we get one question from treasury management almost every time. From financial services, we may get a question, we may not get a question. From project management, we may get a question, we may not get a question. And all of them are theory chapters, so I do not discuss them much in the classes, though I give an overview of that. So what I'm thinking is that after finishing up with security analysis with you, I'll be giving you the overview of these 3 chapters so that you are able to finish them off in time. Okay? So we would be saying that only now, only 2 chapters are left. Okay? Chaliye. So we close it right now over here, and we meet again tomorrow with exam preparatory. So with this,